on, guys? Welcome back to Outside the Arena, first episode of 2024. I'm Griffin Senek alongside my co-host Devin Bernstein, and we're back. Sorry for the little break. We kind of took the holidays off, so missed a few weeks, but we're happy to be back and going to be hitting you with some weekly episodes once again. And we got a lot to talk about: college football, NFL, both at the forefront and really the end of their seasons, especially for college football. We've got we're filming this on Friday. This will probably come out on Saturday. So the national championship going to be 2 days away from when you're seeing this, between Michigan and Washington. Both teams, I believe it's 13-0 at this point. Pretty incredible seasons for both those programs. And we're going to touch on that. We're going to touch on the NFL. Still some playoff spots to be decided, some divisions to be decided. A lot to talk about there. But we are going to start off with college football today. We're going to recap the games from this past weekend, starting with Michigan, Alabama. I mean, both these games in general were incredible. Obviously, Michigan, Alabama going to overtime, and the Wolverines coming through. They win 27-20. Felt like they really were dominating most of this game. I know Alabama kind of had a stronger second half, but Michigan in the trenches that first half really dominant, and just, performance-wise, especially at that quarterback position, felt like Michigan had the edge. Devin, your thoughts on this one? Obviously, I think a lot of people kind of felt like Alabama was the better team coming in, but obviously the Wolverines able to pull off the big win.
Yeah, I mean, these were two really, really evenly matched teams. Like you said, the first half we kind of saw Michigan really dominate Alabama, and then Alabama fought back with a pretty similarly dominant half. I would say Michigan was probably maybe a little bit more dominant in their first half than Bama was in the second. But either way, both teams really controlled the half. Michigan obviously able to have that really, really clutch drive. Um, to score and then not give up points on the other end, which is really impressive. Um, Not even, give up a field goal attempt there. And then, in overtime, you know, I, people are really harping on the play call, and maybe it's because I see my Eagles do this 12 times a week, but I just don't think that was necessarily the worst play call in that situation. Would I have done it? Do I do understand the pushback it's getting, I guess, but like I don't actually think it's like some god awful call. Like it would be one thing if like, in Madden when they like suggest like four verticals on the goal
Yeah.
line, something like that. Like it's not like that. Like they had guys running routes that don't make sense on that, area of the field. Like, that's a play that could work. I just don't think it was necessarily the like most innovative play call. But besides that, I think Michigan just kind of outlasted them a little bit. Like they had a second gear and, had built a lead and then obviously gave it up. And then they just looked a lot better for offensively, especially they were really really hard to stop. I'm kind of forgetting their overtime drive a little bit. What
It was
happened?
pretty quick. I mean, Corum scored, I think it was like a 17-yard touchdown. So it was kind of, I think it might have been even like three plays.
Okay, so that's, I guess, why I'm kind of forgetting it. So they scored pretty easily there and pretty easily on the last drive of regulation. So I guess that's kind of what I look at. It's the big decider here. um yeah, what are your thoughts on this, man? Like,
Yeah, I mean, it was a great game. Michigan's special teams in this one were awful. I mean, they had a missed field goal, they had a botched extra point, they had what, two muffed punts. I mean, they recovered one of them luckily, but they like I think offensively, defensively, they pretty. I mean, Alabama in the second half, give them credit, they played really well defensively. Offensively, it just never felt like they hit their rhythm. Um, but Michigan special teams, I mean, they literally almost costed them the entire game. The fact that they won the game with all those mistakes is pretty crazy, honestly. It just shows kind of how much Alabama really struggled. But yeah, like you said, like Michigan, we've seen how good this defense is all year. They showed up, they played a hell of a game, put a lot of pressure on Milrow in that first half. And, we're able to make the stop. I agree. The last play call, I think another problem that people really don't look at is, how bad the snap was. I mean, I think I was watching some kind of analysis on it, and it seems like it was kind of like a RPO type thing or there was like a read, where the running back's moving out and should have made a pitch, but like the snap was so low to the ground that he just had to focus on catching it. And at that point, it was basically his only option to run. So, I think it was unfortunate. I think the center in that game, I mean, he had what, 3 bad snaps at least. I mean, that's unacceptable. I'm sure his heart was pounding on that last play, especially after all the timeouts. He's probably like, "Oh my
Yeah.
god, I cannot mess this up," and then snapped it to the ground. But yeah, Michigan just outlasted them. I like what you said, and JJ McCarthy. You look at the stats: 221 passing yards, 3 touchdowns. But you watch the game, it felt like he played good, but it didn't feel like he was really like superstar level in that game. But the stats kind of show otherwise. But I think JJ's kind of going to have to. We'll talk about the finals in a second here, but I think JJ's going to have to play a bit better than he did against Alabama for them to win the national championship. But man, Blake Corum, I mean, and Roman Wilson, those two guys, I mean, it feels like every time Roman Wilson touches the ball, it's like a 30-yard catch or a touchdown. Like, especially in the Ohio State games. Like, I swear to God, every time he touches the ball, it's a touchdown. But yeah, he's a stud. Blake Corum, obviously, I think he set what, the single season touchdown record for Michigan.
And the career touchdown record.
And the career touchdown record. Yeah. So, I mean, he's just a superstar, and it'll be exciting to watch him in the NFL. But, he's the engine of this offense. He played great. So, as Blake Corum goes, this Michigan offense goes. Colston Loveland, 2 catches for 13 yards only, which is kind of surprising. Just seeing how well he did against Ohio State. I'm rambling at this point. You got any other thoughts on this one, or you want to jump to Texas, Washington?
Um, yeah, just quickly, like the Milrow, everyone kind of hates Milrow like a lot. Like I don't think he's like he's maybe like yeah, he's not as good as the last 2 or 3 quarterbacks Bama's had, but um he's still really talented, especially as a runner. Like he still has a big arm. I think this was his first year starting, obviously. I think he has 2 more years of eligibility. Like I would not be surprised at all if in 2 years we're saying, oh, this guy's the next Bo Nix or the next Michael Penix, junior who really figured it out. Um, after a year or two of starting. Like I still see the potential with this guy. I just I guess most people are joking, and it is Alabama, so there's a very high standard. But like I don't think like everyone's like, oh, Bill O'Brien was right. Like no, like this dude's a college quarterback.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, no, that those are my only thoughts on that. Moving on to Texas, Washington, another really good game that Washington was like, here you go, Texas, you got it. Um, that's my only analysis of the last couple minutes of the game. I mean, first of all, like it's very unfortunate that the player got injured, but they, basically would have had one play or something like that if
Yeah.
the player didn't get injured. Um, and then the fair catch interference, and then it got so close. I mean, even to just, when I saw that ball go out to Adonai Mitchell, I was like, oh, is this happening? Like, um, yeah, I mean, that was almost one of the craziest endings to a game I can imagine. Besides that, we'll get into this more when we talk about the finals, but Washington is so good. Um, I just get a lot of 2019 LSU vibes. Like, I don't think Penix is quite the prospect or even really college player that Burrow was, just because Burrow is one of the most best prospects in college players I've ever seen. But um, you have an elite receiver or 2 or 3, you know Polk and McMillan as the second and third options, like very reminiscent to me of Jefferson and Terrace Marshall being, second and third options on that team. And then obviously you have the star, like physical, true number one receiver in the Chase or Odunze. Um, and then like the running game's really good. This offensive line can pass protect all day. The defense ain't very good, but you know, it's also, like they gave up a lot of points to Texas, one of the best teams in the
Yeah.
country. So, before I go on for too long, I do think this Washington team is being underrated a little bit, in terms of the odds and the just people talking. Like everyone's like, oh, like Michigan should win this game. I don't, I don't see why Washington's not favored by a point or two here. Right now it's about 4.5 to Michigan. I just think Washington is, probably slight favorites in my mind. Their offense is just really dominant. But what did you make of this game, Griff?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, this was a super fun game. I mean, I think this Washington offense, like you said, it's one of the most fun offenses you can watch. We've watched at the college level. Like you said, 2019 LSU comes to mind when you think of that. Maybe some of those, Ohio State teams with all those loaded receivers that kind of just aired it out, or the, Alabama teams with all those loaded receivers, the Jerry Jeudy wide receiver room, Henry Ruggs, that group. You know, it's just an unstoppable offense. And Michael Penix, I mean, this guy might have played one of the best quarterback games or best games from a quarterback that I've ever seen at any level, the collegiate or the NFL. I mean, it felt like every throw was perfectly placed. This guy's just a master with the deep ball. And obviously, I mean, he's got some of the best receivers in the country, Odunze, Polk, and then, the broadcast made a big point of it. Jalen McMillan, this is a guy who came back, did not play the whole season. And, he's been a really nice piece for them as that third option there. Obviously, Jack West over at the tight end also making an impact, and all doing so. Their running back Dylan Johnson, like you said, went down at the end, banged up. Was fighting for yards, had 2 touchdowns, but not very efficient on the ground due to that injury. But just this offense, this pass attack, just feels unstoppable. And like you said, I agree. I think they're being slept on a little bit here. I understand, some of the performances at the end of the regular season were definitely concerning. But I mean, look at the way they're playing right now. How can you doubt them? Um, yeah, I mean, the end of this game, I just want to touch on real quick. I mean, what the fuck? Like, this was bonkers. I mean, obviously the guy was seriously hurt, but like, I don't know what the rule is, but like, I think two of the linemen you just got to pick them up and like run them off the field because
Thank you. I
like you cannot like they have no timeouts. They're just gonna sit there. Like I understand the guy probably can't move, but like if you're the teammates, like you got to be like, holy shit! Like we're about to punt this ball right back with 50 seconds. That's like 35 more seconds than they were gonna have. 40 more seconds. Like I do not understand what was going on there. Running into the return man like the guy clearly called a fair catch. I understand you try to scare him and like these you know special teamers are taught to try to get up in the face, but like dude, like when you call a fair catch in that case, just let the motherfucker catch the ball. Like you don't need to try to I don't know. And then obviously, Ewers, had the 2 big passes, then they're at the 12 and you know, Steve Sarkisian, as much credit as he gets for being an offensive guru, I mean, awful play calling in those last 4 plays. I mean, you have, first play, obviously there was some pressure, but then it just was not, I didn't really understand the play calls in that scenario. Obviously, the last play, I saw people saying that there's like PI on that play, which I just don't see at all. I thought that was a clean play. I mean, like, I don't understand that. I think that's just kind of Texas fans reaching for something, but crazy. I mean, I think that would have been the worst sell in college football history. Would have had to be, um, unless something like that happened in the national championship game. But I feel like I would remember if it did. Um, Crazy. I mean, Washington. It's crazy to say they were lucky to survive when they were winning the entire game. But holy cow! I mean, what a nightmare that would have been, especially after the way Penix played. I mean, if Penix played that well and came out with a loss, I mean that would almost be just sad. It would just I'd be disappointed, honestly. I think I mean I'm not a big Michigan guy, but Michigan guy at all. I don't know why I'm trying to hide that, but yeah, I mean I think Washington's just a fun team, and everyone can get behind, and they're just really fun to watch. So that's my analysis is that. I'll flip it right back to you though. National championship, Michigan, Washington. You talked about it. You think Washington's being slept on a little bit. Do you think they're going to get the job done, or do you think Michigan, that defense, going to be too much, and Blake Corum going to just feast on this Washington defense that, like you said, isn't necessarily the most star-studded unit at all.
I like the way you asked that question because the main thing I've been thinking about is this Michigan defense so good that they're just gonna um stop Washington. And obviously it's less black and white than that. Obviously you could give up, quite a few points and then be really clutch at the end of the game or whatever and that could still be a good defensive performance against a team like Washington. But I ultimately don't know what this Michigan defense is really going to look like. To be honest, I don't think they really faced an elite offense in the Big Ten. I know there was Marvin Harrison, but now a Syracuse guy, Kyle McCord, I I don't think he's like quite like a Penix, at least not right now. It wasn't this year. I just don't think Michigan's seen an offense quite this good, which isn't like I'm not trying to bash their schedule, which we definitely could do. But especially their out of conference schedule. But um,
Next year it gets hard. I'll give them
next
that.
year it does
Next
get
year it's rough.
hard. Yeah, that's true. Um, but they just haven't faced an offense that is as good as Washington. And I don't know if anyone has besides the teams that have played Washington, because Washington has just, what could have been the Heisman winner. Um, very easily a great set of weapons. I don't know the status of Dylan Johnson. I'm assuming that injury did look pretty bad. I wouldn't guess he's
I
gonna
think I saw a report that he's going to play or try to tough it out,
love
which is
that.
kind of like I get it. Like it's the
Yeah.
natty.
It's the natty. I love it. Um, and then yeah, we talked about it with Washington. I think Washington probably scores in the 35 to 42 point range.
Wow.
And Michigan's probably going to keep it close. I don't know. Like you said, Corum probably has a huge day. I do think their best chance is making this one of those games where each team gets the ball like 7 times or 8 times as opposed to like 12. And maybe they score on four or five of those, and 3 or 4 are touchdowns. So they get to like 27, 30 points, and Washington gets held to around 24. But that to me seems, unless there's some turnovers, or Washington forgets how to catch punts like Michigan did. Like I think the most likely scenario is that Washington comes out, probably gets up, it puts up 21 or so points in the first half. Michigan kind of has to go away from it, and even if they're somewhat successful, it's just going to be a bit too late. That's just what I kind of see happening. So I'm going to say, yeah, I'll say like Washington 42-35, something like that. Like a high scoring game similar to the Texas one. What about
Wow.
you?
Um, I don't. Sorry, I was distracted. I was just looking up the Washington schedule. I didn't realize they played Texas last year in the Alamo Bowl. That's pretty
Yeah,
cool.
yeah,
Um, yeah. So, oh, I'm kind of mad you picked Washington because now I think we're gonna jinx this.
right.
I'm gonna go Washington as well. I'm I'm all in on this offense, like you said. You look at that Ohio State Michigan game. I think that's, I think the Ohio State offense was with McCord was even better than the Alabama offense this year. I really think the
Agreed.
Alabama offense this year wasn't that anything special. They didn't have the receivers they used to have. They had some, the running back was pretty good, but Milrow himself, like, he's probably better than McCord, but like at times he was really like in the big game, it felt like maybe, roughly similar. Whereas I think McCord was more like you knew what you're going to get.
Yeah, agreed.
In that game, you look at the total yards, Ohio State 378, 271 passing yards. Like in offense with Kyle McCord, they did have the 2 interceptions, but this Ohio State offense put up 24 points. I think this Washington offense, like you said, is better than this Ohio State offense. I think Michael Penix is better than Kyle McCord. I think you look at the Washington weapons, they're just as good, arguably, as Ohio State. I mean, I think Odunze is probably a bit worse than Marvin Harrison, but Polk and McMillan, I mean, the other options for Ohio State, Igbuka and Fleming. I know Igbuka's pretty good year. He kind of had it down here. Fleming just transferred to Penn State. I mean, those are solid guys, but so are the Washington guys. Like, I think, Washington's kind of got the weapons Ohio State does, but with a much better quarterback. So I think, you look at that, I think, Alabama managed to strangle 20 points in a disgusting offensive performance. Like, I think this Michigan defense is good, and I think they're going to get a lot of pressure on Penix. But like we saw last game against Texas, like, look at how Michael Penix deals with pressure. He just senses it immediately, gets the ball out super quick. And, I think compared to a Jalen Milrow, who's more a scrambler type quarterback, Penix is, more in that pocket, more comfortable there than a guy like Milrow. So I don't think we're going to see as much panic from a guy like Penix in those situations, which I think plays into Washington's favor. And I just think, like you said, I think Michigan's path to victory is running the football. Blake Corum's the best player on your team. You know, he's probably the third best player in this game to Odunze and Penix, I would say. You know, you got to get him the football and control the time of possession. You know, if Washington wins time of possession, I don't think Michigan is going to win this football game at the end of the day. You know, I think Michigan has to dominate time of possession, dominate the line of scrimmage, which they're more than capable of doing. So I think it's going to be a good game. I don't think it'll be as high scoring as you think. I think Washington probably, you know, I think the key for them is getting to 30, 32 points, roughly like that. Because this Michigan offense at the end of the day, you know, it's a pretty solid unit, but, you know, it's not the most dangerous. Like this Texas offense is better than this Michigan offense, in my opinion. So I think Washington can hold this Michigan offense to, you know, 25, 30 points. And I think, you know, that ultimately will be enough. So I'm going to pick the Washington Huskies to win the national championship. But I think it's going to be a good game. I see a path to victory for both these teams. And, you know, what a game it's going to be. And Michael Penix, man, he is the X factor. I mean, if he plays as good as he did against Texas, I just don't see how any team in the country can beat him. So Washington Huskies is the official pick, I guess, of Outside the Arena, which is kind of scary. So congrats to the Michigan Wolverines on their first natty since, I mean, it's been, I think someone said 1948. I don't know if that's correct, but
No way.
I'm going to look it up now. Michigan Wolverines football, national championships. I'm a little confused on it. There's claimed national titles and unclaimed national titles.
Right.
What?
I have no idea
What?
what it means.
1997. It says they a split national championship. What the hell? I think it's 1948. Yeah,
Interesting.
I have no idea. This is kind of confusing. Well, they've never won the college football playoffs, so
Yeah.
for either of these teams, it'll be the first. But yeah, that's what I got.
All right. Moving on to NFL. First game probably coming out the day. Sorry, probably happening the day this comes out. Um, Steelers, Ravens. We probably have the Ravens. The Ravens are resting Lamar. I know that. I don't know about like the other star players. I guess that they probably mostly don't play.
Yeah, it
Um,
looks like, sorry, six of them
Go
have been
ahead.
ruled out. It says Lamar, OBJ, Kevin Zeitler, Marlon Humphrey. Um, looks like those are kind of the guy. It looks like really just Lamar and Odell are the rest, though. Like the
Okay.
guys who are resting.
Right.
Um, Zay Flowers is doubtful, though, so I don't know.
Okay.
Sorry.
No, no, no worries. Um, Yeah, so other than that, we have the Steelers obviously playing for their playoff lives here. Mason Rudolph doesn't suck somehow. Um, that's a pretty interesting bonkers storyline. So, I mean, I don't know. He might completely go off a wall here against his Ravens defense, even if there's a lot of backups in. Um, by the way, Mike McDonald, I think that's his name. Yeah, Mike McDonald, the DC. I That guy better be a head coach this time next year. But yeah, outside of that, like I don't know, this feels like we get this two times a year and it's always the same game. It's always like 16-13 with three turnovers each, and like the Ravens can be the best team in the league, but the Steelers will make their offense look miserable for somehow, but then the Steelers offense won't do anything either. So I just think the Steelers, with their playoff lives on the line, the Ravens don't have much to play for besides the rivalry and pride. And I don't know how much they're going to keep in. Like, some of the starters that aren't out, I just wonder how long they actually stay in the game, if at all. So I'm going to go with the Steelers here. What about you?
Yeah, I'm gonna go with the Ravens. I think, you know, that defense is so good based on that list there. It really seems like most of those defensive guys will be in there, which I think will be enough. I just am not a big believer in the Steelers offense, although they've played pretty well the last 2 weeks, albeit, you know, they've played Bengals and Seahawks, who, you know, I wouldn't consider either of those teams to be too stout defensively. You know, Pittsburgh, they're going to be an interesting team to look at in the offseason. Obviously, you know, them moving on from Kenny Pickett at this point, you know, signals that they're going to be looking for a new quarterback this offseason, which I think is good. I mean, I think, you know, we've talked about it throughout the season. Like, this is a team that, it's clear that Kenny Pickett, he's serviceable, but this is not a franchise level quarterback, a guy that's going to go win you a Super Bowl. So I think them realizing that, the pick at the time was a little kind of confusing because I feel like, I don't know, it just never felt like this guy was going to be something that special in the NFL. But I get you take your chance, and at least they've realized that. And, it's a strong quarterback class this year. So maybe they can land one of these it seems like kind of top four that have kind of panned out. Obviously, I don't think Williams or May, but or even Jaden Daniels. It'll be interesting to see where Penix goes, but probably before their pick. But regardless, I'm going to pick the Ravens. You got the Pro Bowler out there in Tyler Huntley, so it's more Pro Bowl QBs than the. I guess Mitch Trubisky's probably made a Pro Bowl in his day, so it evens out one apiece. But Ravens got the one start in this week, so I'll go with the Ravens. I don't know. Why not? I just feel like they'll dominate this game. I just think that defense is too good.
Yeah, absolutely. Next up we got Texans visiting the Colts. I don't know the exact scenario. I think it's just whoever wins is in and they win
Yep.
the division if the Jags lose as well.
Yeah.
So obviously a lot to play for. I feel I mean, we all know deep down that the healthy Texans are a better team than that I guess we don't even know what the healthy Colts really are because of Richardson, but we'll just say the healthy Colts with Minshew. Like but the Texans are missing their number one receiver. So or are probably their biggest playmaker at least
Yeah.
can tell. I I don't know. I just feel like the Colts have kind of taken on some weird like voodoo magic that the Eagles had last year. Um, I don't know. I just feel like the Colts win this game for some reason. It's in Indianapolis. They're gonna be going crazy. Steichen's gonna be, have them well prepared. And I don't know. I feel like their path to winning this is putting up a decent amount of points, which in the NFL this year isn't that much, but could be, 24, 27. You get to 30, you're probably winning that game as much as the Texans offense could kind of do the same thing, which is why I predict it to be a pretty close game. Um, uh, you know, obviously Stroud could completely go nuclear with the season on the line. I could see that happening against a pretty weak Colts pass defense, but I do think the Colts run defense is a lot better with Grover Stewart up in the middle there. And I just maybe they can make the Texans one-dimensional. I think they're maybe a little bit better coached, but both teams are really well coached. I'm excited for this rivalry for years to come. The AFC South has really turned it around because, you know, the Jags, I guess the Jags are the team that's looking like it has a pretty bleak future along with the Titans, but both these teams feel like they have really, really bright futures ahead. So I lean Colts in this one. What say you?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's an interesting game. I like the whole, voodoo magic. I mean, I think that the fact that Indianapolis won 9 games this season is pretty remarkable. I mean, it shows the type of coach Shane Steichen is. Michael Pittman's had a huge year for them. JT's been back playing well. That said, I'm going to go with the Houston Texans. I think at the end of the day, I just think this is the better football team. I think right now their defense is starting to come alive. Will Anderson has 4 sacks in his last 3 games. He's really starting to show up. You've got, Derek Stingley's playing at a Pro Bowl kind of level in that secondary this year. And I think you look at the offense, obviously no Tank Dell Hurts. That said, you still got a guy like Nico Collins there, Dalton Schultz, Noah Brown's put up big numbers at times this year, Robert Woods, the trusty veteran. And I think that'll be good enough. And I think Stroud, at the end of the day, this is just the games he's got experience playing in the big games when he played at Ohio State. Granted, it felt like he never won those big games. Obviously, he was 0-2 against Michigan and lost in the college football playoff. But, he's still got that experience compared to a Gardner Minshew who, he's played in some big games, but I don't know if any bigger than this. Maybe I'm wrong, though. So I'm a big Stroud guy too. I just believe in this guy, and I also think an underrated part of this team is the run game. Devin Singletary has really had a career resurgence in Houston this year, which has been super interesting, considering you look at his counterpart, Dameon Pierce, who came in as the starter and has just really struggled this year. Feels like Singletary is always, averaging 4 or 5 yards a carry a game. So I think he's given some elevation to this offense, weirdly enough. And I don't know. I just think this Houston team right now, I just am going to go at the end with the better quarterback, and I think that's CJ Stroud. So I'm going to go with the Houston Texans. But, it's going to be a good game, I think, for sure. All right, moving along. Jaguars at Titans. Jacksonville in a weird spot now. This is a team that prior to last week lost 4 games in a row. Roughly corresponds with when Christian Kirk went down with the injury. So obviously, it seems like I think he is going to be a game time decision this week. I would expect Trevor Lawrence to play, although I believe, Doug Peterson said that he's still day to day, but you would imagine he goes with so much on the line. That said, Trevor prior to this, very banged up, turning over the ball a lot. I mean, we talked about it off air a lot. Um, you know, I'm kind of I don't want to say hater, but I've definitely never been as high on Trevor Lawrence as some other people. And, regardless of what you think, I just think this year has been concerning for him. Regardless, though, they're taking on the Tennessee Titans, definitely the worst team in this AFC South. Is Will Levis good to go? No, it's Ryan
I can't
Tannehill.
imagine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. So Ryan Tannehill, old reliable, going for the Titans. Very well, maybe Derrick Henry's last game in Tennessee as well. So your thoughts, Jacksonville, Tennessee. I guess if the Jags win, they win the division. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Something about the Jags winning the division this year just doesn't feel like it's gonna happen. So and Ryan Tannehill, probably his or definitely his last game with the Titans. Probably Derrick Henry's, potentially DeAndre Hopkins. I don't think it's Mike Vrabel's. I don't think it should be Mike Vrabel's
No.
either. Um, but anytime a team does bad, there's gonna be some type of rumors, it feels like nowadays. But um yeah, I'm taking the Titans, man. I don't know. I don't know if Lawrence is going to be 100%, and their offense hasn't really been very inspiring. And I don't know. It just feels like the Titans would win this one to screw over their rivals. Vrabel will probably have them playing tough for the last minute. Like everyone always says this, but it's very true. Like the players don't care about the draft pick that might come and
Yeah.
replace them. Like they're not like gonna be like, oh, but like this is better for the team that might cut me in the offseason. Like, no, like, are you kidding? Well, no. Um, so that's just not how it works. I hate when people are like, well, why would the Titans want to win this week? It's like that's just not how that works. But so I do think they'll, have something to play for in the sense of trying to take their rivals out of the playoffs potentially. Um, so I'm gonna go with the Titans here. What about you?
Yeah. Before I get into it, I have I'm curious as to what you think. Like I agree with what you're saying 100%, but for instance, like the Jets Patriots game, like let's say a guy like a Brees Hall or a Garrett Wilson who knows that they're totally safe with the team. You look at the game, you look at, hey, if you beat the Patriots, your draft pick's getting worse, but also New England's getting closer to getting a Drake May or a Caleb Williams. Like, do you think at all those guys are because I feel like for a guy like that, you almost kind of in the back of your head, I know they're so competitive, but be like, it might be nice to get a better offensive lineman so I can actually get the ball some more. I don't know. I don't know. What do you think?
I feel like I I don't know why when you brought up the Jets, I imagine that the Jets would be the team to like think about it that way for some reason. Um maybe I mean it's hard for me because I
Yeah.
obviously I'm not in an NFL locker room. I never played football, so I don't even know what it's like to view the NFL as something I could potentially play in versus something
Yeah.
I follow. You know, my guess would be maybe no, I just think against the division rivals, they probably just want to win.
Yeah.
I could see it though. Like I bet there's been some thought of that, but I think at the end of the day, guys are like, but my contract is more important if I get to this many yards. Like
Yeah.
I think that would be their first priority, if anything, would be like yardage and stat padding, to be honest, because that
Yeah.
impacts the money. I could see it, but I don't think it's like a common thing at all. I don't know though.
Yeah. No, no, no. I agree. I just want to get your thought on that because
Yeah,
there's
no,
something
that's a
that I've
great
seen it all
question.
over Jets Twitter a little bit this week, and I honestly, I mean, I kind of think there's definitely some benefit towards the
Oh,
Jets losing this week.
oh yeah.
I'm going to pick Tennessee as well. I think, in the media this week, Mike Vrabel, one of the media members, I forget asking him about, maybe it was about losing if it improves your draft pick or something like that. And, he kind of was just like losing, effing sucks like that. I effing hate it. Like, I think Tennessee is going to come out ready to play. And like you said, like, there's guys on that team with stuff to play for, like Ryan Tannehill. Like, he's been on the bench all year. Like, I'm not saying he's going to be a starter, but like, if this guy wants to keep playing, like, he needs to go out and show he can still, win a big game. Derrick Henry, he's going to be looking for a new contract this offseason. He hasn't had a great year. Can he have a vintage Derrick Henry performance? D Hop been pretty solid all year. Can he perform? Like, there's guys on this team that I think, there's still talent in them, and I think they're going to have something to play for. And like you said, I think Jacksonville just banged up right now. Like Trevor Lawrence is not going to be 100%, even if he plays, he's dealing with, it feels like, I think the man's body is just breaking down this season. I think he's just, I feel bad for him, honestly. It seems like every week it's like, all right, this week's the ribs, this week's the shoulder, this week's, the elbow. Like he is like in the deal going through it. But, it's crazy that he's only missed one game this season with all the times he's left with an injury or had an injury reported. So props to him, man. I mean, he's, that was his first game I think he's ever missed too, which is nuts. So, cannot question that guy's competitiveness or, just toughness at all. But, I think they're hurt. I don't know what's going to happen with Christian Kirk this week. It doesn't seem like he's going to be 100% either if he plays. So I just think Tennessee is going to come out, play aggressive, play physical, kind of, stick to their brand and, try to grind one out. And then, if they can kind of make it a sloppy, grimy game, I think that favors them. So I'm going to go with Tennessee here.
Yeah, I like that pick. Obviously, I joined you. Now that means the Jags are gonna. Now that means the Jags are gonna win.
Yep.
Moving on, we got Vikings paying a visit to the Lions. These teams like just played. I think like we never even talked about that game. That's how close, recent it was. But you know, I don't know. I get the same sense with the Lions that they're gonna come out really pissed off that I kind of got with the Titans. The Vikings are eliminated, correct?
I don't know if they're officially, they might be eliminated. I mean, I don't really know. They're not going to make the playoffs, I don't think. But like maybe there's a back door for them. I don't really know.
Yeah. But regardless, they're back to Nick Mullins, who I guess is at least makes more good plays than Jaron Hall, but he fancies they all like turnovers, all that.
Yeah.
He might like it the most. I was talking about this with with my friends. I was like, yeah, when Nick Mullins is getting sacked, I don't know who told him this, but he just throws the ball, like no matter what. Like he doesn't care if it's a fumble, an interception. He just does not want to take a sack. And it's like it's cool when Josh Allen does that, but not Nick Mullins. Like whatever. Um, yeah, I think the Lions kill them. To be honest, I don't think the Vikings have enough juice at the quarterback position. They've kind of cycled through all the backups they can. They fought hard, but when you lose Kirk Cousins, who was playing like really really well, which I hope people don't forget. Because I don't know. I really enjoyed the Kirk Cousins run this season, the short time we got to see it. But yeah, no, I'm just going with the Lions here. At home, they're gonna be hyped up, getting ready for their first home playoff game, at least in this century. Um, because they've never won the NFC North, which is insane. The last time they won their division, it was the NFC Central. So, um, that's just an insane statistic that goes to show you how important this season is to the Lions, even if they're not necessarily true Super Bowl contenders. But they did just compete with the Cowboys, who are definitely Super Bowl contenders. So
Yeah.
nothing stopping the Lions from going on a deep playoff run. I'm personally rooting for them to beat the Cowboys or Niners because I know for sure my Eagles aren't doing it. Um, so yeah, I'm going with the Lions staying high going into the playoffs. What about you?
Yeah, I'm gonna pick the Lions too. I think they're gonna be pretty fired up, especially after the whole, events of last week, the, whole ineligible reporter. I mean, I'm sure anyone watching this is seen what's happened. So obviously, very unfortunate break for them. Seems like the refs definitely fucked up. So we don't have to get too involved in that, but I think they'll be ready to go. I mean, they're still probably, I mean, I know that it really screwed them out of the 2 seed, but I mean, they could maybe still get it, maybe not. I don't really know, honestly. I'm not. There's so many different scenarios that have
Yeah.
been floating around that I'm just like, who's getting the 2 seed? I got no idea. So, regardless, I think they're pretty. I think they'll probably end up being the 3 seed, but I think they'll be fired up to play. Like you said, we just saw this matchup in Minnesota. Lions won. You know, this offense so good. I mean, I know Jared Goff is, you know, turned the ball over a little bit more this year, but he's still great, in my opinion. And Amon-Ra St. Brown, one of the bigger Pro Bowl snubs out there, has had a great year, and Jahmyr Gibbs as well has really elevated this offense this year. I swear that guy. I know last game his yards per carry wasn't great, but I swear before that, like every game, this guy he gets less carries than Montgomery, but like he's going for like 8-9 yards a carry, like every time. It's like pretty crazy. He's such a talent. It's been really fun getting to watch him. You see why the Lions were so ecstatic to get him at that 12th pick. So, uh, you know, good for them. It's been a fun season for them. It'll be fun to watch them in the playoffs, and I think they cap off the regular season with a win. So, yep, going Lions as well. All right, moving along. Falcons at Saints. It's a big game. I think both these teams, the winner of this game would win the NFC South if Tampa Bay loses, I believe. So potentially big implications. Tampa Bay does play Carolina though, so it feels like they should get that division locked up. But at the end of the day, one of these teams could win. New Orleans, just beat the Bucks last week, classic Saints fashion, putting up a strong defensive showing against. Feels like the Saints just own Tampa Bay, like weirdly, like every year, except for that one like playoff game against Brady. Derek Carr did pretty decent in this game for Derek Carr standards. Jamal Williams, I didn't even look at the stats. He outcarried Alvin Kamara by 9. Alvin Kamara only had, it's weird that Alvin Kamara went from like 12 receptions a game to like they don't throw it to him anymore. Like it was an interesting change, but regardless, both these teams need the win. Who do you got?
Um, I don't know. Sorry, teams. I don't like either of these teams. They both upset me. Um, Not because they're like particularly bad, just because I don't know what their like appeal is. Like who's on like the graphics for the Saints? Like honestly, like who's their like star player? Like Olave? Is it like Kamara?
Yeah, well, I guess Kamara got hurt. I didn't realize that.
Oh,
Yeah, which would make sense why he got out carried in the game. But
yeah.
now I look like an idiot. But yeah, maybe Olave or Kamara. I mean, I guess you could throw Derek Carr on there. Like he's well known at this point.
Yeah. But I don't know. Besides that, yeah, it just doesn't feel like they have anyone super exciting. I guess like I do really like Olave, but I feel like even him for a younger player, like I don't necessarily like see him being like an elite wide receiver one. Like I think he'll probably stay where he is. Like I don't think he's necessarily gonna break into that like Lamb, Jefferson, Chase type tier necessarily. Um, I just I guess I'll go with the Falcons here. I'm kind of babbling on. I don't have much to say about this game. Yeah, I'm gonna go with the Falcons. I either team could win this game. That's the honest truth, but I will go with the Falcons.
I'll go with the Saints. Why not? Some Taysom Hill magic. I don't know. I think the Falcons are such a mess, man. Like this team is. uh, It's like Arthur Smith needs to be fired. I mean,
Yeah,
I'm sick of watching
yeah,
Arthur Smith run the shop. Like I think he's a fine coach, but like dude is just misusing the hell out of all these players. I mean, Bijan should be getting Bijan should have been fed this season. Kyle Pitts basically is like a bust for how he's produced in his career. Like it's just mind blowing. It's just frustrating. I feel like I rant about it every week, so I'm not even going to get into it. I'm honestly just picking the Saints out of like frustration of the Falcons. So I'll leave it at that. Honestly, both these teams stink. This division stinks. Tampa Bay is definitely the only team that could, I think, actually win a game in the playoffs. Um, you know, but these teams stink. Derek Carr stinks. The Saints probably have a bit better of playmakers though, and I think that defense is probably better. But maybe Jesse Bates gets 3 interceptions. Who freaking knows? I'll go with the Saints though. That's all I'm going to say about this one.
Yeah, no, I certainly get your frustrations with the Falcons. Moving on to a game we kind of touched on earlier, Jets Patriots. I'll take the under in this one.
Yeah,
I saw it's like 31 and a half. That does feel a little bit high. Like honestly, like
that's a sketchy number though.
yeah,
31.5 is just like, ugh, like I would
yeah,
not want to touch that at
yeah,
all.
that's true. That's true. Maybe just bet on a defensive touchdown because that seems like
Or
so likely.
Brees Hall over on receptions with Trevor Simeon feels like
Oh,
a guarantee.
that feels like a good bet. I guess we're turning into outside the hedging or I don't know,
That's in the head.
some type of
Um,
yeah, I don't know. That's a horrible name, but I'll go with the Patriots here. It seems like they own the Jets for whatever reason. Like I was thinking about it, have any of the Jets players beaten the Patriots like that are currently on the team? Like Quinnen
well,
Williams,
haven't they
maybe?
lost like 18 straight times to
That's
them?
what I'm saying. Like,
Let me see the series history. I
um,
probably not. Yeah.
yeah, it's very possible that
Um, let's see. This is New England. They've won the last time the Jets beat the Patriots. The last oh my god. The Jets have not won a regulation time game against New England since 2011. They've won 2 overtime games since then. They won one, the most recent being in 2015.
so none of these players were on the team. None of them. I don't
I don't
think.
think so. That would be 9 years ago. I don't think the Jets have
Yeah.
any like 10-year vets at this point. No.
Yeah. So, that's insane.
Sauce
Um,
Gardner was like in like middle school.
yeah. 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 Yeah, no, that's absolutely insane. Maybe more reason to pick the Jets, I guess, because they're gonna care more. I don't know. But I'm gonna go with the Patriots here. They own the Jets. What
Yeah,
about
I'm
you?
going New England both because I want the Jets to lose, just because I think it's a good point. Like, why like if New England gets a Drake May, Caleb Williams, and they just become a star, like it's just going to be frustrating. And selfishly at this point, like I get it. Like you want to have pride and you want to win games, but like top of this draft class is really good, and I would really like one of those wide receivers or one of those offensive tackles. So I'd kind of like to improve the standing so we can get one of those guys. So at the end of the day, if someone said it, I'm going to enjoy, whoever it was, let's say Romo Dunze, or I think it was Matthew Berry. He said, I'm going to enjoy Marvin Harrison for the next 10 years more than I'm going to enjoy this one stupid win that I'll enjoy for the rest of the day. And I think that's honestly like, I know it's a bad and maybe mindset to have as a fan, but at the same time, like when your team's fully out of it and just like, bad and like the draft is the easiest way to address one of your key needs, like, I don't know, man. I believe that wanting to lose is good. Maybe that's bad. Maybe that's just because I've grown up with all terrible teams. Um, but I will pick the Patriots. I do think they're just like, I don't know. Bailey Zappi, he had 3 picks last week, but they were still in the game against Buffalo. Like their defense is kind of started to play a little bit better. Zeke Elliott's kind of cooked a little bit. Um, I don't know, man. Like you said, the Pats just own the Jets. So I'm going to move on. I don't really want to talk about this anymore. I think this next game's another one that we're probably both going to be able to be in agreement on. Bucks Panthers. I mean, this Carolina Panthers trade last year for the number one overall pick might go down as one of the worst trades in NFL history. And I like, you know, maybe I'm not as high on Bryce Young as other people. I know you like him a lot. I mean, I can't blame the guy. I think it's like Trevor's first year where it's like, okay, we need to like see him a little more. Like you kind of have to like throw this one out. Like you can't really use it against him. Like the situation was so bad. The coach got fired mid-year. He's got no weapon. So like I want to see Bryce Young on like a real team, like not like a CFL type team. Um, but I mean, at the same time, you traded up for the number one pick, but you now basically traded the number one pick. They traded DJ Moore. They're trading the number 9 pick. Like, oh my god! But that's what you got to do when you think the guy's the guy. You go get the guy, and they got the guy, but maybe the guy's not the guy, and the other guy was the guy, and now there's a new guy, and is he the guy? We'll see who's the guy. I'm gonna pick the Bucks though. I think Baker Mayfield's been great this year. Had a rough week last week. Mike Evans is a star. Rashad White's been great. I just think they're the better team. Carolina sucks at the end of the day, and yeah, that's all I got. Bucks.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm going Bucks too. I don't have much analysis on the game. Like the Bucks could play pretty badly and still win this game. That's just the honest truth.
Yeah.
So I'm going with the Bucks. I just don't think the Panthers were ready for a quarterback. Like,
Yeah.
especially when you're giving up your first round pick the next year in a trade up and getting rid of your best playmaker, you have to have some other playmakers or, more than an Adam Thielen who had a good first half of the year, but then he even kind of fell off and it was just like, oh my God, they have no one. Like, Mingo, I guess part of it's just been the actual moves themselves haven't been very good. Like Mingo has been worse than what you'd expect from a early second round receiver.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just yeah, I don't know. It's just I do think you kind of have to throw it out the tape from Bryce Young's rookie year, but I also think it's hard for that not to affect, a quarterback. Like it's hard to
Yeah.
just completely lose a year and get to your full potential. Like I think we're almost seeing that with Lawrence in a way. Um so yeah, so it sucks for Bryce Young. I mean they better have a good offseason. They have a lot of money, I think. So they better get a T. Higgins or a Mike Evans or a Nico Collins or someone like that that could be available. Although I'd almost guarantee Nico Collins resigns with the Texans, but
Yeah.
um yeah. That's all I have to say, but big off season coming up for the Panthers without their number one, which is
Yeah.
really tough. Moving on to
Real
another
quick,
game.
wait, real quick.
Yeah,
I
go
just
ahead, go
want
ahead.
to. I was very curious on these Bryce Young stats. 59% completion percentage, 2,700 yards, 11 touchdowns, 10 picks, 73.7 rating.
Oh my God. That
I
is
didn't think it was that
brutal.
bad. I'm gonna be honest.
That's brutal.
That is crazy. I'm curious now. Go ahead with the next game. Now I want to look up Trevor's rookie year because I feel like
Yeah.
that was really bad too.
Yeah, no, that's
Um,
gonna be interesting to see. Yeah, moving on, we got Bengals Browns. Not meaningful for either team. Um, I'm gonna go with the Browns backups. Although the Bengals, I guess, might be playing their starters. So actually, I will go with the Bengals. But this game doesn't really matter. I don't have much to say. Although since we last talked, the perception on the Browns has certainly changed a lot. So I take that back. I do have one thing to say about the Browns is that they're winning the damn Super Bowl. I don't actually think so, but they could very well make some noise. Like the way Joe Flacco is playing doesn't feel sustainable in the sense that it would work for him to throw all these crazy passes, but I do think it's sustainable that he's actually giving this offense some spark that they haven't had.
yep,
Um, and who knows, like what if, guys just don't he has a few really good games or guys drop some interceptions and this defense is obviously incredible like we know about. Like I'm really excited to see this Browns team in the playoffs. I'm rooting for him for sure. But yeah, I'm going with the Bengals in this kind of meaningless game. But what were Trevor's stats?
it was. I think he had it was like 35 or 3,600 yards, 12 picks, 12 touchdowns, and 17 picks. So pretty bad as well.
Okay.
Um, yeah. Um, I'm gonna pick the Browns in this game. I'm not even gonna talk about the game. I just want to talk about the Browns. I think like this team is like. I mean, this is obviously who I'm rooting for. I mean, they're kind of my NFL fandom. If you've been a fan of this podcast or just know me, it's a little kind of. I'm not as It's not like the Mets for me, where it's like this is my life. The Jets and Browns, I both have love for. I probably become more a Jets fan, but still, man, Cleveland. Like I love watching this team. They've been better in my lifetime somehow than the Jets. And this year has just been so fun. And you look at the preseason with this team, like you look on paper, and it's like this team should be one of the best in the NFL. And finally, I feel like we could have been saying that for the last few seasons. And finally, this year, it's kind of just happened. I think you got to give credit to Jim Schwartz. I mean, that man has just revolutionized this defense, has put all the puzzle pieces together. They got three of the better cornerbacks in the NFL in Denzel Ward, Greg Newsome, and Martin Emerson. Obviously, Myles Garrett, Amari Cooper's been a stud. The O line, you got that the guards are elite. Obviously, the tackles they're on their like fifth and sixth strings now, but those guys are still battling it out. For me, I think this team can beat anyone in the NFL. And you look no further. PJ Walker started for them. They beat the 49ers. Deshaun Watson had a terrible first half, very good second half, but they beat the Ravens. That was, I think, the Ravens' last loss potentially too was against Cleveland. They've beaten the two best teams when those two teams played. I guess was that last week or the week before? I guess it was the week before. Yeah, it was the week before. People were considering that as Super Bowl preview, and Cleveland's beaten both those teams. And who knows John Harbaugh's system better than anyone, maybe besides Lamar Jackson in the league, would be Joe Flacco, who's the quarterback of the Cleveland Browns. So I think they can get it done. The turnovers are a little concerning for Flacco, but at the same time, I think that kind of recklessness has been good for this offense because they've been pushing the pace, and Kevin Stefanski's been able to do a lot of fun things. I think this team is just kind of captivated a lot of people. People are rallying for them, and it's awesome to watch. I mean, they're gonna play the winner, I guess, of the AFC South. Um, yeah, they are, which I think they should win that game no matter what. And then from there, obviously, who knows? But um, going to be really fun to watch this team in the playoffs. I hope they make a run. Um, would be really fun, but been a fun team to watch. I'll pick them week 18. Even, they're starting their fifth quarterback this year, which is absolutely insane. But that's the story of the Cleveland Browns, and Kevin Stefanski, rightfully so, I think is the heavy favorite for Coach of the Year. What a job he's done with all the injuries that team has suffered. So picking the Browns. Yeah, sorry for the little rant there, but um, yeah, man, it's been an exciting watch for sure these last few weeks.
Yeah, absolutely. Moving on, we got Bears at Packers. I think the Bears may.
Another great storyline.
Yeah, yeah. What are the Bears gonna do? Let's talk
Yeah.
about that real quickly. Like, what would you do? What do you think they'll do?
Yeah, it's a crazy crazy situation, honestly. It seems like the fan base has weirdly rallied for Fields, which is kind of crazy. This team has played a lot better recently. Matt Eberflus somehow has saved his job. Like he's really shown why he got hired as a head coach, and he's a defensive genius, and we've seen that these last few weeks. Offensively, DJ Moore's put up a career year with Justin Fields at the quarterback position. Cole Kmet's been great. There's still issues on that O line. You could use another receiver like a Marvin Harrison. Um, I've gone back and forth on this. I really have. I I'm a big Justin Fields guy. I really am. And I think that if you stick with him, you can build a loaded offense. I mean, I think they should probably try to figure out a way to trade back a slot or two so they could still get Marvin Harrison because I do think you want to end up with him if you're not picking Caleb Williams. But it's such a tough thing. I think weird. I don't know. I'm like all in my head. I'm all over the place with this because I feel like Caleb Williams, going into the year, it's like, oh my God, this guy's, the best prospect we've seen since Lawrence, superstar. And it feels like kind of there's been some skepticism. I don't know if it's because of USC's bad year or some of these rumors of him wanting minority ownership in the team or what the deal is with Caleb Williams. Um, you know, I don't know, man. I'm all over the place with this one. I think you'd get a king's ransom if you trade the pick, which you have to take into consideration. They'll obviously have their own pick, which will still be a decent selection. I would say keep Fields and try to draft Marvin Harrison and hopefully figure out a way to, land another tackle or something like that. Um, but I don't know, man. It's such a tough decision because the thought of getting a Caleb Williams who might end up being better than Justin Fields, and You reset the rookie quarterback contract, I think is big, but these next few years, you're not going to have to pay Fields that much. So I think that's going to over exaggerate a little bit. I don't know. I'm all over the place on it, clearly. What do you think?
Yeah, I think you got to take Caleb Williams, man. I do think Fields can succeed in the league, but I just think, you know, first of all, I do think if you aren't taking Caleb Williams, you're right. You do need Marvin Harrison. So are you necessarily going to get the same, haul you got back for the pick last year? Probably not. Even if it's a more valuable first pick, you're probably only trading back to three. So, maybe you're getting a first next year and then another day two pick this year, something like that. But it's not going to quite be the DJ Moore and a first next year, which ends up being the first overall pick and then another pick. I don't think it'll be quite like that just because of the amount of spots they're going to want to move back. But besides that, I think Fields is someone whose floor is still, not super high because, he's still got a lot of work to do as a passer. And his ceiling is high, but if he reaches that ceiling, you're pretty much immediately gonna have to pay him. I mean, it's only 2 years, so I'd rather get a guy like Caleb Williams who could be great by his second year and then you've really got 3 to 4 years to work with under that cheap rookie contract. Whereas with Fields, you have this offseason and one more where he's, only slightly cheaper than on that mega contract because the fifth year option is like 32 million nowadays, which I feel like kind of does take the point away from it in some cases because then teams can be just incentivized to decline it and get them on a long-term deal. But besides that, like I just think, and I do think Caleb Williams is better as a prospect than Fields by a wide enough margin to where you just kind of got to do it. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, that's I really wouldn't disagree with you though because I've been going back and forth on it a lot too. Um,
Yeah.
as for
Super
the
interesting.
actual game, I think the Packers win this. We talk about the Patriots kind of owning the Jets. It seems to be the same case for the Packers and the Bears. You know, I think Aaron Rodgers, if you taught Jordan Love one thing, it's to hate the Bears. And yeah, when I guess these teams were both completely different teams when we saw them play week one. So
Yeah.
it's hard to even like think of that. But they've kind of gotten Aaron Jones going, the Packers, which both of us kind of joked about how we didn't see him playing, and they ended up having a big week, I think, the last time we talked.
Yeah.
So he's kind of gotten, some of his rhythm back. That's been helpful. I think Christian Watson's out, which doesn't help. Um, yeah, I go with the Packers here. They're winning in, I believe.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think they win this game. What about you?
Packers are running out all these like random receivers that are like studs. Like last week, Bo Melton
Bo
had 105
Melton? Yeah.
yards. Jaden Reed. Obviously, Romeo Dobbs has been there a while. I mean, really good scouting by them. Those guys have, especially Jaden Reed's been a stud. Look, man, Justin Fields, this whole team is rallied around this guy. You hear DJ Moore, you hear all the guys saying, this is the quarterback. Justin, this is his one last chance. He knows it. If he's not thinking that, hey, my team's got the chance to draft a guy like Caleb Williams, I got to show something. What better way to go knock out your rival Green Bay Packers out of the playoffs in Green Bay on Sunday? Maybe it's Fox kickoff. It's CBS, regardless. Yeah, man, I think this is going to be a Justin Fields legacy performance. I just got a feeling that this kid's going to do it. I'm a huge Justin Fields guy. It's starting to eke out, but I think if he goes out, plays a big game, this team finishes 8-9. Um, how can you trade him, man? I know it's Caleb Williams, but it's like, I don't know, man. If you got the locker room rallying behind him, I don't know, man. I think he's a I don't know. I don't know. I'm leaning too much into the discussion. I'm picking the Bears. Why not? I think this is going to be a fun game. Now, if Fields goes out and throws 3 interceptions, I think we're going to see the entire narrative flip, and everyone's going to want Caleb Williams. So it's going to be very fun to see. I think Bears fans are they're very wishy washy. It's kind of like reminds me of Mets fans a little bit or a Knicks fan, just like a little delusional at times. I love it. But I think it'll be very fun. I almost don't want it, but I'd love to see just like if Justin goes out and throws like 3 picks, like how quick it's gonna be. All right, Caleb
Yeah,
Williams,
with the
welcome to
switch. Yeah.
Chicago, man. Like I think that would be really funny. I've been rambling along about the Bears for too long, so we're gonna move on to the Cowboys and Commanders. And oh man, I mean Dallas has almost been gifted the NFC East at this point. If they win that division. Obviously, we're going to talk about the Eagles in a game or two. Um, very concerning from them. But Dallas barely, with the help of the refs, beat the Lions. They now have to beat the Commanders for a win. I mean, you look at this Dallas team, I think there's definitely some concerns going into the playoffs. That said, if this team can secure the 2 seed, they play a lot of home games. This team definitely a lot better at home. Um, you know, I don't know if they've actually lost at home this year. They haven't, which is wild. They went undefeated at home this season. One, two, three, four, five, six, seven. Yep, 8-0 at home this season. So that's pretty remarkable. And if they win this division, I think that greatly boosts their playoff odds. Um, Damn, that means they're like trash on the road. That means they're 3-5 on the road. Holy cow, that's insane. So maybe the Commanders win this one. I don't know. I'm picking the Cowboys. I think the Commanders suck. I mean, Sam Howell at this point is getting thrown around like, he gets benched and then Jacoby gets hurt, so then he's starting again, and now he's going to start it out again. I mean, it's this guy has just got to be like, at one point he was like leading the league in passing yards, and it looked like he was going to be the guy. And now it's like, get this guy out of town. First off, Ron Rivera, I think, will be fired like within 1 second of the game.
Yeah.
Like as soon as that whistle blows, like his office is just gonna magically just have been cleared out. Yeah, I'm picking the Cowboys. They've had a strong season. I think Dak's had a good year, but yeah, I'm gonna pick Dallas for sure. So I
And
would
what
assume
do
you'll do the same.
Yeah, I'm gonna do the same. Yeah, what would we give away if Ron Rivera doesn't get fired? Like, what would we do? Like, give everyone who watches the video like a sweatshirt or something?
Yeah, yeah. I'll give my every dollar in my bank account. I'll give away everything in this room. Like he's gone. He
Gone.
is the definition of gone.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I'm gonna go with the Cowboys. Their road struggles don't scare me in this game, but they certainly do in the playoffs. I heard Josh Harris, the new owner, apparently is like telling them to lose, basically. Um,
Really?
that's what
Oh.
I did hear that from my dad, who said he read it in an article. So I
But
don't
it
know.
would be good for them to lose, man. I know the players wouldn't want to, but I mean, Sam Howell is definitely not going to be like, yeah, man, I want to lose this game so Drake May can just take my spot. But like Terry McLaurin, like, bro's probably on his like he's probably practicing his drops right
Yeah.
now.
Yeah, no, yeah, no, absolutely. I've never thought of it this way in my entire life, but now that you bring it up, like every week 18 for the rest of my life, I'm gonna be raising this question.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, I mean I don't know why Terry would. Yeah, I wonder. I don't know. I guess contract
especially Terry, bro.
incentives,
Terry's dealt with so much shit over the
so
years.
much shit. Yeah,
Like the thought of him getting like Drake May or Caleb Williams, like, bro is gonna be. Maybe he'll put up 200 yards though. I mean, who
yeah.
who freaking knows?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I'm going with the Cowboys. I don't really have much to say. They're not great on the road, which scares me for the playoffs, but I don't see any world to come in. Like they're not even like playing for Ron Rivera because they know
No.
he's gone no matter what they do.
Yeah,
Um, moving on to Broncos Raiders, since we last talked, the big news with the Broncos is
yeah, that's true. I forgot.
Russell Russell Wilson hit the bench. His time in Denver is over. He is a Pittsburgh Steeler. I regret to inform everyone. Mike Tomlin's gonna see his touchdown to interception ratio, and they're gonna bring him in. They're gonna make it work. I don't know why I'm so set on that. It could also be the Patriots. Oh, it's so the Patriots.
But if Belichick leaves, like, it might just be a new era, though.
That's true. If Belichick stays, then I would actually like really favor the Patriots there. I don't know why I'm talking about Russell Wilson's free agent. Yeah, but he got benched. They said like if you don't pay like take off your injury guarantees or some of the guaranteed money or whatever it was. You're getting benched, and then he kind of called their bluff, and then they were like, okay, now we're gonna bench you because we're
Yeah.
basically eliminated. Kind of a shady move by the Broncos. Like, I get it. Like, they're in a pretty desperate spot with this contract, but also, like, you don't want to do that. Like, especially not to a really well respected, probably Hall of Fame quarterback. Just not the way you want to go about business. That's all I have to say about that. About the game, probably another snooze fest type game. The Raiders defense has played really well. Stidham, I think, sucks. So I'm gonna go with the Raiders here.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with the Raiders too. I mean, you know, Antonio Pierce has done a hell of a job there, and I think deserves the job. And
Absolutely.
he gives off like Mike Vrabel vibes and Dan Campbell vibes. Just like a former player who's very hard nosed, wants to win, very competitive, and those coaches. Look at Vrabes and Dan Campbell. I mean, those guys are both excellent coaches in the NFL right now. I think it's great that he's gotten this interim year to kind of get his feet wet too, because you look at Dan Campbell initially, like that guy was a deer in headlights. I mean, we talked about, just how much he struggled and the clock management was a disaster. And for Antonio Pierce to kind of get a little feel for that in a lost year, I think is great because next year, assuming he gets the job, he'll be good to go. Um, I'm going to pick the Raiders in this game. Like you said, their defense has been really impressive since he's taken over. Feels like they're just playing for something. Max Crosby, obviously one of the premier players in the league. Will be interesting to see what they do in the offseason to address the quarterback position. Both of these teams, like where do the Broncos go from here? Russ, he wasn't even that bad this year, especially considering the way that all these quarterbacks got hurt. Like he was probably in the upper echelon of performances this year, weirdly enough. And they made their own run, but Sean Payton, obviously, it really seemed like after last year that, you know, it was going to be the end of the road. And looking back on the trade and the players the Seahawks got, like obviously Seattle won the trade, but, I think it wasn't as bad as, people make it out to be potentially. I don't know. It is pretty bad, especially considering all the dead money they're going to eat. Um, Definitely unfortunate. I do feel for Russell Wilson. I feel like the last few years, the guy's gotten kind of, you know, bombarded. I don't know. Ban uh banished, like bashed in the media.
Yeah.
It's just been ugly for him, and he's a good guy, I think, at the end of the day. I mean, there have been some kind of negative stories about him, so maybe I'm wrong. But regardless, I'm picking the Raiders. I don't think we need to talk about this game much more. Next game, however, Eagles Giants. We do need to touch on the Philadelphia Eagles, Dev, because maybe they just missed outside the arena. That's why they started playing worse. They were upset we weren't posting. But this team, starting with that 49ers game, has lost 4 of 5, especially the worst one coming this past weekend, losing to the then 3-12 Cardinals 35-31. Feels like this team is just kind of broken right now offensively. Doesn't feel like anything's going right. Defensively, like we've said all year, it's been a mess. I'm gonna let you kind of just. I think we'll both probably pick the Eagles in this game, right, against the Giants.
No,
No. Oh
they
wow.
haven't earned my pick.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll pick the Eagles. But I will let you take the floor here and kind of talk about whatever you'd like with the Eagles and your thoughts on them.
Um, yeah, I mean, what's frustrating is the offense did play well last week. No turnovers from Hurts until the Hail Mary on the last play, which obviously doesn't, affect how he actually looked. Um, I mean, just horrible. I mean, I thought it couldn't get worse than Sean Desai, and then Matt Patricia came in and he's playing, Nolan Smith, who was an edge rusher. He's playing him at middle linebacker. Um, he's dropping Hassan Reddick and Josh Sweat and Brandon Graham into coverage, and you know, and James Bradbury couldn't stop. I don't know anything. Something really bad. Um, Avante Maddox got cooked. The safeties are the only ones that even seem to care about football, along with Fletcher Cox and Brandon Graham, but they're not great. The corners are obviously horrible. Um, Darius Slay, what are we doing? Get your cleanup knee surgery over the offseason. This isn't a new thing. I think he just kind of got upset and was like, I'm sore. Like, you know, I cut you gotta cut Slay, you gotta cut Bradbury, you gotta cut Byard, you gotta
Wow.
finally invest at this linebacker position. You might have to cut one of my favorite Eagles, Josh Sweat. Um, he is complete. And the problem to me is a lot of it is coaching. You see a Derek Barnett who couldn't get on the field with the Eagles because he was so bad, and now he's on the Texans and he's leading the league in pressures over the last 3 weeks. It's like I don't know what it is, but both of these defensive coordinators just really aren't getting the best out of their guys. And offensively, it's a good offense because it's so talented, but it's really not well run either. And I think at a bare minimum, you start by first day of the off season, probably, is similarly after the game ends to when Ron Rivera will get fired. Obviously the Eagles will play one more week, maybe two if they beat the Bucks in a meaningless game just to get clobbered by the Niners. You know, I just you've got to fire both defensive and offensive coordinators. Brian Johnson doesn't know what the middle of the field is. And I got to be honest, I think if I'm Howie Roseman, I'm firing Nick Sirianni.
Whoa.
Yeah, I
How
mean,
they turn so quick.
I know I just sound like the typical Philly fan who just turns, and I love Sirianni, I really do. But if you look at it, I mean, these are the coordinators he hired. These are personnel moves that he did not make, and everyone knows this team is still really talented. He's not the offensive play caller. He's not, you know, this culture guy who's, making his players play super hard. They like him, but almost that's kind of the bare minimum is being liked by your players. And I get it if you want to give him one more year and, go get new coordinators and, give him at least another year and then, just understand, you started 10-1 and whatever. And I'm not going to be mad if they don't fire Sirianni, but, I see a Ben Johnson who's going to get hired as a head coach. I see him like McDonald. I want one of those two. That's my honest opinion. You know, Hertz's contract is set up in a way so that the next 3 years he's not paid like an elite quarterback. You're going to be cutting a lot of guys. You're going to probably have the most cap space in the league if you cut Byard, Slay, and Bradbury, which I would honestly expect this team to do.
Yeah.
I think you gotta take advantage of this window, and I love Nick Sirianni. He's always gonna have a special place in my heart, but I think you gotta consider it at the very least. Which is just brutal. But yeah, I went on a really long rant there. I'm sorry about that. Um, yeah, I don't know if I genuinely I'm not picking the Eagles because I don't want to say that this is the get right game. I mean, I've been saying that since the Seahawks game, and none of these games have shown me anything that this team is gonna figure it out. Honestly, it upsets me. I keep on avoiding like all these TikTok power rankings I see and stuff. And whenever they get to the Eagles, I just skip the video because, I know in my heart that they're ranking them too high, even though they're ranked at like 11. Like, I get it. Like, we're still probably the most talented roster in the league, at least on offense. But this is not a good team. Like, that's all I gotta say. That's how this rant ends. This is not a good team right now.
Yeah, I love the rant. I think you bring up a lot of good points. I think the Sirianni thing is really funny. I mean, I think I think he's pissed off a lot of people that are not Eagles fans just with
Yeah.
his actions and all the stuff you see after the game and just going at people, whatnot. It just feels like this team, like you said, like the defense, they've got kind of, you know, they they went for like the big name approach, I think, on defense with some of these guys, like Kevin Byard, Shaq Leonard, a former all-pro caliber player. Like they re-signed Julio Jones. Like I think, Howie Roseman has kind of been caught up a little bit in just signing a big name or like someone that's well known. And sometimes you want those lesser known players because they're the ones like look at, on the for the Dallas Cowboys, Darren Bland this year has had an incredible season. That's not a guy that anyone knew about going into the year. Anyone on planet Earth would be like, oh, James Bradbury is a better corner than that guy. I just don't think the Eagles have done a great job at finding those kind of hidden gems. Maybe you look at a DeAndre Swift as one of those examples. Obviously, Jalen Hurts, I guess, was kind of passed up and eventually became the franchise quarterback. But I guess really just this year, in what I think um, they've kind of just tried the moves they've made have been for these kind of aging veterans. I know Julio had 2 touchdowns last week, but like you get the point. Like these are moves that are not like helping the team really. When there's other guys out there to be had. I think offensively, like you said, like this team's been very good offensively for most of the year. They have hit a little bit of a stagnation, I think, despite, they should put up 31 points against a team like the Cardinals. Um, they got to get AJ Brown the ball more. Like he went on that streak of 6 games with like 120 plus receiving yards, and we haven't heard from him basically since. He's had, I think, one 100 plus yard game since then. He's got to get the ball more. I know Devonta Smith's been banged up. Goddard started to play well. DeAndre Swift's playing a little better. Like the pieces are there offensively. You got the best O line, arguably in the NFL. I'm not worried about the offense, but like you said, the defense, it's a huge concern, especially come time when you're going to end up matching up with the 49ers or with Dallas again, and it would be in Dallas, which I obviously is, not where you want to play. Even the Lions, they're not the best defensive team, but the Lions and Eagles didn't play this year, right?
No.
Yeah, so we haven't seen that matchup. I would imagine, this Detroit offense would fare pretty well with this Eagles defense. So it's going to be interesting. I don't want to write off the Eagles yet. Like I feel like a lot of people have because I think the talent is still there. I mean, this team is still so talented. They were just in the Super Bowl last year. And I think a lot of people thought they got better. Obviously, doesn't seem like that's the case, but also some of that was just kind of natural regression. In the NFL, it's very hard to win every single, lose only one game in a season back to back years. Like that's just not really realistic. Um, but you know, they got to take care of business. I forget if you even mentioned, are you picking the Eagles or are you picking the Giants this week?
I'm picking the Giants.
Picking the Giants. Okay. So there you go. Dev's picking the Giants. I see a very hard time seeing Tyrod Taylor beat the Eagles, but who knows, man? Weirder things have happened. Um, this podcast is starting to run on, so we will move on to the next few games. Some of these games pretty kind of whatever. Seahawks, Cardinals. I'm gonna pick the Seahawks. I think the Cardinals are a solid team, but I don't see them going back-to-back wins.
Yeah, no, I have nothing to say. I'm taking the Seahawks too.
Rams, 49ers. I think San Fran's resting a lot of people, but so is LA, I believe. So this is just a kooky game. I'm gonna pick the Niners. They're at home. They probably still have the better talent on the field with both of these teams kind of resting some guys. So I'll go Niners here.
My man Carson Wentz, baby. I'm taking the Rams. I'm excited to watch Carson Wentz play. It's always, it went from really sad and hard to watch when he's on my team to really fun to, ride the roller coaster without any stake in the fight. Um, I don't know. There could be a 300-yard, 3-touchdown masterclass. It could be a 4-pick disaster class. I don't know. I'm excited to watch the man. Ginger Jesus. Yeah, I'm excited for it. Moving on, Chiefs Chargers. I will say this, the one team I'm like less confident in than the Eagles that's a playoff team is the Chiefs. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, Kelsey looks really, really, really struggling. I guess he's just getting doubled on every single play because they have no confidence that anyone else can get open.
Or
Rasheed
catch the
Rice,
ball just in general.
yeah, that's also been an issue. It's both getting open and catching the ball, the rare times that they do get open. Um, Rasheed Rice is good, but
Yeah.
other than that, it's just like it's that and like Mahomes scrambling basically. I do feel bad for Mahomes, as weird as that is to say. Um, I'd expect the Chiefs. I think I've said this. I expect the Chiefs to pour all their resources this offseason into the receiver group.
Yeah.
And potentially a replacement for Kelsey, be it, this year or just in the long term,
Yeah.
because
And they'll have to re-sign Chris Jones, I guess, which I would assume they gotta re-sign him. I mean, if you lose Chris Jones, I know it's a lot of money, but
yeah, I'd imagine they bring him back, but seeing what they did with Tyreek, they might make the decision that they need to kind of narrow out the spending even more. Outside of Mahomes, obviously, they might just want to say we're not going to pay anyone top tier money at their position, which I guess could be a fair argument. But I would definitely be bringing Chris Jones back, is what I'll say.
yeah.
I'm gonna go with the Chiefs here. Chargers have nothing to play for, and they suck, so double bad. Chiefs have nothing to play for, but they also kind of suck. But I'm gonna go with the Chiefs here. What
Yeah,
about you?
it's a tough one. I'll go with the Chiefs. I mean, who's their backup's playing Gabbert, right?
Oh, right, they're not even playing Mahomes. Oh,
Yeah, no.
yeah,
It
I'll
doesn't
still go
matter.
with the Chiefs. But yeah, I think he was playing.
Yeah, they both these teams suck. Who cares?
Yeah.
We're going Chiefs. But the last game of the slate, the last game of the regular season, Bills at Dolphins for the AFC East. The Dolphins are in no matter what. The Bills, however, could lose and miss the playoffs, which is pretty wild. The difference between a win and a loss in Week 18 being the 2 seed or a miss the playoffs is wild. But that's how the AFC has been all year. I love it. I forget the exact scenario, but I think it's like pretty like possible too. It's not like it's like
I think it's just the
outrageous.
Jags and the Steelers win.
Yeah, I think it's something like that. Regardless, Buffalo going to Miami, uh, you know, Bradley Chubb tore his ACL last week. Very unfortunate news. Obviously, that Miami defense has taken some hits throughout the season. Buffalo, I think, is at relatively good health right now. They've been playing better than Miami has, although they did beat the Cowboys a few weeks ago. But last week they got absolutely obliterated by the Baltimore Ravens. Um, Dev, your thoughts? Who's winning the AFC East?
Um, I'm gonna ride with the Bills here. I do hope that this is the scenario that happens where they're winning in to the 2 seed and losing out of the playoffs just because of the immense stakes that would bring. Um, I don't know. I think the Bills have really kind of changed their identity. They said, we don't like you, Stephon Diggs. We're running the damn football and throwing to our damn tight ends, and it's kind of working in a weird way. Josh Allen's still turning the ball over. I was kind of discouraged by their offensive performance last week, against the Patriots. Too many turnovers, not enough, big plays, whatever, the whole nine. But besides that, that's been more the exception, not, the consistent outcome for this offense. I think the Dolphins defense is going to be too banged up to keep up with them. And I think McDermott's going to have, a pretty good game plan. Obviously, the Dolphins offense has slowed down, partially correlating with that Tyreek injury. Um, so I'm going to go with the Bills here.
I'm gonna go with the Bills as well. The Dolphins, you know, I'm changing my pick. I'm going with Miami.
Wow.
I think Mike McDaniel is an offensive genius. I think this is where you pour everything you got. And Tyreek Hill is a special player. I know he's been banged up, but I think they find him ways to get the ball. This Buffalo defense is not nearly as good as the Baltimore defense. We saw Baltimore obviously give Miami a lot of trouble. I know Tua is pretty heavily criticized for not being able to win the big game. I think if they lose this one, I mean, it's just going to get even worse. But he's playing for a contract at the end of the day. I mean, if he wins the AFC East, you would imagine that, I think you have to extend him either way, but in terms of just the money, I mean, he's playing for a lot of money at stake right now. If he loses this week and loses first round of the playoffs, I mean, it's just like, what do you do? I mean, you got to kind of pay him, but you're, probably at that disparity between what he's going to want and what the team's willing to give him, based on his track record. So I think Tua's going to come out ready to go. He's got something to prove. Is Jalen Waddle going to play? I'm not 100%
I don't
sure.
think
No, he's
so.
out. Okay, well, that's a big loss, obviously. Is Mostert going to play? He was out last week, right?
I'm not sure. I'm gonna look up the injury
I mean,
report.
regardless, I'm gonna roll with the Dolphins. I don't know. I just feel like this is one of those games where at home Miami just gets it done. The Bills have been really good. It's probably a bad pick. Um, I don't know. One of those feelings. The one thing I will say to end my talk about this game is what the hell is going on with Stephon Diggs? I mean,
I was gonna say, yeah.
gotta be he's gotta be loading that trade with Cress, typing it out, getting it perfect, getting it spell checked. I mean, dude, what in the world? I mean, they're just not even getting him the ball anymore. I mean, it's perplexing. Um, and it's like if they have to trade him, then like this offense is like Josh Allen and James Cook. Like it's not that good at all. So I don't know what's going on. Just seeing the tweets from Trayvon, obviously Stefan's brother, and just knowing kind of Diggs' history, it feels like we could be getting a little trade request in the pipeline. Who knows? But yeah, I'm gonna pick Miami. Why not?
Yeah. We're not doing any NBA, right?
No, I
Okay.
mean we're already at like an
Y-
hour 40, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, no. We won't put you through any more pain and suffering, viewers at home. Um, yeah, this was an awesome week. Good to catch up. On some big news. Another big week. By the next time we'll talk, we'll have a new CFP champion. We'll have the playoff seating and whatnot fully set. So we'll be get into that stuff. We'll talk some more MLB, talk some NBA. Make sure to like and subscribe if you haven't already. And we'll see you next time.